Now, this is a beautiful aphorism of Sri Aurobindo. It's aphorism 7. What men call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances, so precise. What you and I call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. So, Adya sitting here is an appearance, and to my reason, it makes sense that this is Adya. She's sitting here, she's worn a white kurta, etc., etc. And to me, this form is Adya. But that's what I call knowledge. What men call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. But actually, this is not Adya, this is the cosmos sitting here. But my reason has convinced me that it's Adya sitting here, right? So Sri Aurobindo is saying what men call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. Wisdom looks behind the veil and sees. So that chakshuscha chakshu we spoke about at the beginning, the eye behind the eye, wisdom looks behind the veil and sees. Reason divides, fixes details and contrasts them. Wisdom unifies, marries contrasts in a single harmony. Just in 3 lines, how beautifully he summed it up. So he's saying what men call knowledge is reasonable, but it's a reasonable acceptance of false appearance. But wisdom looks behind the veil, like for Jill Bolt Taylor, who I spoke about at the beginning, when she had her stroke and her left brain shut down, then knowledge shut down. She lost all her, and then what arose was wisdom. She saw that everything was one. Reason divides, fixes, details, and contrasts them. Wisdom unifies, marries, contrasts in a single harmony. So it was so interesting. Just last week, I'd taken some children to Pondicherry, teenagers. And the second, at night, we always go to the Samadhi. So the second night, one girl came and told me that I want to ask you, something happened to me at the Samadhi last night, and I want to know if it's good or bad. So I said, what happened? She's saying, I was just sitting and suddenly my thoughts vanished. In fact, it was such a blank that even when I tried to think, I couldn't think. And that made me panic. I tried very hard to remember the Yoga Sutras we'd studied or whatever, but it was like I just didn't have thought available to me. Now, that makes you panic because you feel you are because of thought. The great falsehood, I think, therefore I am, not true. I am, therefore I think. So with Mother's grace, she got that experience of I am. But to her, the real thing was thought, and this was something unusual. But actually, that is the real thing, and thought is a sort of illusory thing that we live with. So, all that Sri Aurobindo writes about knowledge, reason, wisdom is said in order to bring us out of the rut of conventional thinking and, if possible, make us perceive the reality behind appearances. So Mother is commenting on his aphorism, where he says what men call knowledge is reasoned acceptance of false appearances. So Mother is saying that whatever Sri Aurobindo writes about knowledge and reason, it's to break our mental conventions, to take us out of rigid thinking and belief in us thought structures, and make us perceive the reality behind appearances. As a general rule, with a few very rare exceptions, men are content to observe more or less accurately everything that happens around them, and sometimes within themselves, and to classify all these observations according to one superficial system of logic or another. And they call this organization, these systems, knowledge. It has never occurred to them. They have not even begun to perceive that all the things they see, touch, feel, experience are false appearances and not reality at all. The constant general argument is, but I see it, I touch it, I feel it. Consequently, it's true. They should, on the contrary, tell themselves, I see it, I touch it, I feel it. Consequently, it's false. Can we do that? For us, I see this, I touch this, I feel this, it's true. But mother's saying that on the contrary, you should tell yourself, I see this, I touch this, I feel this, therefore it is false. We are the opposite poles, and there is no way of coming to an understanding. For Sri Aurobindo, true knowledge is precisely knowledge by identity, and wisdom is the state one achieves when one is in this true knowledge. So he's saying the knowledge is true knowledge is not what your senses tell you or what people tell you. True knowledge is knowledge by identity. When you're quiet and when you become one with something, that's the time you know everything about it as knowledge by identity. And wisdom is the state one achieves when one is in this true knowledge. He says it here, wisdom looks behind the veil of false appearances and sees the reality behind it. And Sri Aurobindo emphasizes that when one defines something with the superficial outer knowledge, it is always in opposition to something else. It always by means of a contrast that one explains what one sees, feels, touches, and does not understand. Reason, so it's like if I know light, I know it because of darkness. When there is darkness, by contrast, I know there's light. So by mother saying that reason always knows things by opposites, by contrasts. Reason always sets one thing against another. I know plus because I know minus. If I didn't know subtraction, I wouldn't know addition. I know good because I know bad. People whose thought and reason are clear see all the differences between things. It is rather remarkable that reason can only work through differences. It is because one perceives the difference between this and that, one act and another, one object and another, that one makes decisions and reason works. So, reason is always by differences, na? If you look at anything you've reasoned out, it's always because you're juxtaposing opposites, you're contrasting. But it is precisely true knowledge, knowledge by identity, and the wisdom which results from it, that always see the point where all apparently contradictory things harmonize, complement each other, form a perfectly coherent, coordinated whole. And naturally, that changes entirely the point of view, the perception, the consequences in action.